What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of times I record these videos in the middle of the night. It's 2:45 a.m. right now. This is not because I'm one of those hustle harder workaholic type of people. I had mentioned in the Discord to a couple people today, oh, I missed everything that happened today because there was a whole bunch of activity in there. Um, like, yeah, I just got up a few minutes ago, and it was like 4 in the afternoon, and people were like, "What are you doing? You took a nap?" I'm like, no, I am someone who just sleeps when I'm tired, and then I'm up whenever, and so that's why some of these videos come out in the middle of the night, and then sometimes you'll see them early in the morning or in the afternoon. I mean, there's no real thing, although I seem to do more of these in the middle of the night than anything else. Why am I telling you that? I don't really know, but the a big part of that is to let you know that I have no great concept of time or dates or schedules. I'm really bad at, you know, I've got to have stuff on my schedule and three alarms set for me to actually, um, remember to do it. Unless my wife just tells me, and then she just tells me that day, hey, you got to do this, and then I do it. But um, so I have been operating under the assumption that I started investing in fractional real estate in September of last year. Why did I think that? I have no idea. But I just was looking up deals and realized that my very first purchase was in August of last year. And not just like, oh, it just the end of August. It was like on the 6th or I don't know, very early August of last year. So that's kind of weird, right? I mean, I'm a whole month off. I should have done my 1 year anniversary. This is what I've learned. This is my returns, all that sort of thing. Well, I thought I had a while to get that done still, so I didn't do that. Um, I'm sorry I missed it. I missed our anniversary. I even put out my first YouTube video about this stuff. I think actually that would be tomorrow would be the anniversary of that. I'm not sure. I looked that up too, but now I forgot. Because like I said, that's I have a very good memory about a lot of stuff. For whatever reason, dates and times and scheduling type stuff, just absolutely meaningless. It doesn't stick in my brain at all. But so yeah, been doing this now for over a year, and I've learned about a bunch of different sites. I have a lot of excitement about fractional real estate investing in general, but I've been really disappointed by a lot of platforms along the way. Why do I have this page with interest rates up? That's a good question. They are creeping down, so I think that's a good thing for us as owners of real estate. But I think that it's going to make buying harder and harder as rates drop, because there'll be more and more competition. Right now, it's a fantastic time to be a buyer, um, provided you can live with the high rates, right? Like, we have just a ton of inventory on the market, a lot of flexible sellers. My team's been able to make some really good deals over the last several months, in large part because of that. But anyway, I don't know why I had that up, but you can tell this is gonna be a little bit of an odd night. So if you watched my video yesterday, you can tell I've been super frustrated with Lofty. They are definitely the platform I've spent the most time on. I think it's because there's the most opportunity to spend time on there, right? Um, there's a secondary market, there's constant trading, there's a decent inventory on their secondary market. Um, but the more I get into it, the more there's layer upon layer of risk involved, some of which was just very much not apparent to me, especially in the beginning. Like over time, I've just shared more and more things that make me worry about it. I've really come to the conclusion that even my, discounted token strategy, there's just so many ways that it can be stymied because to make it work well, you have to be able to get to the sale quickly and then actually get cash when you sell, right? And so I don't know. I'm very much thinking that I had already stopped putting money on, and then I did last week because there were some really deep discounts. But I think the more I think about it, I'm going to just slowly take my money off this platform. I'll still do due diligence videos on the new listings. If there's something interesting about it, I'll talk about it. But I think we'll see if this actually happens. But I plan to talk about it much less. and just slowly work my way off the platform because I just think the biggest thing is, I noticed this was when I was going through is I do spend a ton of time on it. And so my return on time on the deals I'm on there is just not worth it, right? Like even one like the Odom deal, I've got a decent amount of cash in that. It's my biggest holding on Lofty. And I imagine like if I really went all in on Lofty, that's about the size of the investment I'd have in each individual property, right? Maybe 10, 15, $20,000 in each one. A lot of them you can't even put that much in without you're passing the 15% limit, but somewhere around there. And like honestly, the amount of time that I've worked on that one deal for what I'm going to make on it, and it's also, it's not going to be super profitable, but it will be a profit. Um, it's just not worth it, right? Like when you look at that return on time, and that's been my big, one of the things that I realized over time with that platform is you can get really good percent returns on the very small, small amounts of cash, but as you start to put more and more, it gets difficult. And so, the only real opportunity I see on Lofty is if you're somebody bringing properties to the platform and you're able to do it where the property covers the debt, right? I think doing it where you're covering the debt is sort of a trap, and I think a lot of people started to realize that. But if you're able to bring the property to the platform, the property pays the debt, and you still get to sell it for a premium, that seems like an opportunity. Or buying properties that lofty entities are selling, I think that's an opportunity. It just doesn't seem like as a fractional real estate pure investor, it's I mean, and I asked this question in the Discord, and Earl mentioned a couple people who he thought of as just pure investors that would be fans. I talked to one of them quite a bit, and I don't know that I agree he's a fan. The other one I have yet to, so I'll work on that. But it doesn't strike me that there's very many people that are just pure investors that are actually happy with their returns on the platform that don't just spend an inordinate amount of time on there. So I don't know. It seems to me that uh, that's just my overall feelings about that. So I think you'll probably hear me talk about them less. Gonna slowly take some money off there. But so then where does that leave us, right? Well, obviously Mogul. Mogul's the platform I'm the most excited about still. Um, they sold out two properties this week. They don't have a secondary market yet. They've got three current properties that are up right now. I've already invested in two. The third one is one that I decided to pass on. Um, you know, this is actually probably working the way it should be, right? I don't spend a ton of time on it. They bring up a new property, I think about it, decide whether or not I want to buy it. Once they have a secondary market, maybe there'll be some more opportunities, but there won't be all of this like arguing over the business plan or trying to change strategies or none of that's going to happen there, right? Because it's just I've invested in this property. This property is being operated by Mogul or this third party manager, and that's it, right? So I don't know. I think yes, it's going to be this is what I imagined when I first thought of fractional real estate investing, right? I'm looking at the deal, trying to figure that out, put some money in it. I never really thought about, oh, am I going to be able to sell it before the property sells in real life? I still think they're going to create that, but at the moment they haven't yet. Um, by the way, please like and subscribe. There's that little. I have had quite a few new subscribers lately, which is nice. But tickle the like button, hit the subscribe. I don't even know is the subscribe thing. What does it look like? It just says subscribe. But then also, do the thing with the bell. You got to do something there. But in the description of this video, there are links to all the sites where I currently invest in fractional real estate online. Um, some of them say they'll give you some free money. I think Mogul and Arrived are the no Mogul and Ground Floor are the only two that I have seen consistently do that for people. But do your own due diligence when using those links or looking at any of the properties or the sites that you see me talk about, right? Just because I invest in some of them doesn't mean that you should. Um, both the platforms and the properties. Also, there's a link in the description to this video to the Discord that I have set up. Um, Lots of people talking about lots of different sites on there. Hoping to have more just general real estate discussions on there too, but I'll get to that a little bit later in this video. This is probably going to be a long video, but that's no surprise, right? We'll see. But anyway, I think Mogul's definitely something I'm excited about, but it does. I wonder, are they going to be able to keep up enough inventory where they sell out so quickly? And in my mind, they're just the obvious choice, right? Like if you are looking at you're just looking for a passive real estate investment where you're not having to work with the other investors and come up with new plans and do different things. And, if your goal is to be that type of investor, not this, an entrepreneurial person trying to create something new, I think it's just a real obvious choice as far as from a returns perspective, from their stated returns relative to a lot of the others. I've just been real impressed by them. Of course, they are super new still, just a couple years old. I've only been investing with them since December. I say that. I mean, now that I know, I have no idea when I actually started. Who knows? But that's what I think. I think I've been investing with them since December. I know I got my first payment wasn't until all the way in March because it took a little while for that first deal to close and then to start operating. But in the time I've been with them, been super happy. But yeah, it doesn't leave a lot of opportunities, right? If you jump on that site right now, you see three options to invest in. Um, I know a lot of you guys that really turns you off, right? Like you want more options, like especially when you first get on there, and it's because you're like, okay, I want to like feel like I'm really picking something. I think their average deal is a great deal, so I don't, I buy two out of every three, something like that they list. That's been pretty consistent. And honestly, I don't, I think I'm being pretty picky. So, but again, do your own due diligence and decide for yourself. I mean, it could be that they have a huge flaw that I'm missing, right? And that all these go to zero. That's a perfectly possible in any of these scenarios. Um, Other than that, you've got Saul's Lot is another platform that I'm very excited about. Uh, but that has very little volume right now. They have one property up. I did buy a little bit of this one. They're very new. They're still working a lot of kinks out of their site. I think this dashboard, yeah, it still is not loading for me in a reasonable time. Um, the good thing about this is you can also just like I have my Gobi wallet connected, so anything I can do the transaction on here and then verify that I have it in that wallet, so that it still works. And I know they're working on fixing this. They are one of the newest ones. So again, you got to do your own due diligence because one, it's a very complex legal document that creates your entity. Most of them are, but I think it's even a little bit more so than the rest of them. And so, for me, what I've done is just bought little pieces of every single one that's come up. I have done due diligence on each one, but so far there hasn't been any like glaring reasons for me not to. And I've sold out. Several of them have gone full cycle, and I've done perfectly fine with them. Over time, I'll just do more and more. Then we get to so those are the only two like that I'm like really excited about. And then like I'm just gonna go through some of the others that we talked about, and then try to. I have some other thoughts on like I feel like I've on what maybe we could do, right? Because I hate feeling like we don't have a ton of great options. Um, Ground floor, early, if you caught me early this year, this was one of my favorites. I thought, oh, I'll just keep adding money. And I thought that I would, uh, but I was letting the experiment run a little bit and they paid off half my loans. Uh, Not the borrower paid off, but like the platform paid them off and moved them to some other thing. So I got paid for them. I got a return, but it ruined my plan to get like this wide diversification. I'm slowly building up to where I have a lot of loans again. So what am I at? I think 96. Yeah, so I mean, I was really hoping to get to around 200. I was at like 126 and then bam, got knocked down to 50 something. Just because of the way I use this platform, I just want to have a whole bunch. Um, and over time, if that works, then I'll put a lot more money into each one, right? Like it's not that I want to just keep putting this little tiny bit in each, but I think that if I can't confidently keep a high level of diversification with the strategy I'm trying to use on here, then it's not very attractive to me. And this is, expected total returns, 11.42 for my closed projects. I think uh, yeah, 11.44 and 11.25. So blended, it's somewhere around there, right? Actually, I think it shows me somewhere for my 11.5 total. Um, I know the way they do their math is it's really only they're only telling you on your closed ones. I haven't had any default, so that's worked fine. But yeah, I don't know. It's on the lower end of the total returns that I'm looking for. The cash on cash returns on obviously are some of the highest because you're like just getting paid interest, but that's all you're getting, right? You're not getting any sort of appreciation. So we got that, and then it drops off pretty quick, right? Like I have one arrived homes right now, but just so I could get into the secondary market. All the ones that I'm looking at now are still, 3%, maybe 4% cash on cash, and then they just predict you're making most of your money from appreciation. And that's not a strategy I can really get behind. I am excited about their secondary markets, right? Maybe the next round and the next round, maybe that gets more interesting. But the way it is right now, it's tough, right? Yes, I'm trying not to be too depressed because I do have some thoughts on like other stuff that we can do. And we like I said, we always have Mogul, right? And hopefully they can ramp up their volume and we get more options there. Um, if that's the one that you think works for you. Collab, I haven't really changed my mind on. Not super excited about them, although I do have the one that has consistently paid me, even though I can't figure out where the money's coming from because it doesn't look like the property's making enough to pay me. Um, but they just had their WeFunder thing. This has been going on for a while, and I guess it got approved by the SEC. So now they're actually selling it, where before it had like this weird note that said like, "Well, we're not really trying to sell you this. We're just trying to get your interest or whatever." But this is what I think they're doing is, what I would think of as venture debt, right? You're actually making a loan. You get paid back 15% of the revenue until you get 2.2x of your investment back. So I don't know. It's interesting, but it's definitely not what I would consider, fractional real estate in the way that I think of that I'm just owning a piece of a property, right? This is like owning venture debt against the property or something. I mean, I'm not even exactly sure if that's what it is, but that's what it seems like to me. It did get me to go back to Arc 7. This is a platform we've talked about quite a bit. I've spent a lot of time on this. I don't talk about it too often because I just never find these deals that I think make great sense. I got to move my little face here. I'm in the way. Um, yeah, they log you out quicker than anybody else. I'm not even going to talk about like Landa and Realty and the ones that like really are just not even an option anymore. So you don't have to worry about that. But when you look at this Arc 7, they bring deals to their platform and they always seem to just be, too low of a cash on cash for me to be excited about. But I wanted to show you. So this is one that I had looked at earlier um, on this channel, and I wasn't very interested in it at the time. It seemed overvalued there. It seemed like a low distribution. They do have some discounted ones, which has got me looking at it a little bit more. But then I was looking at this again today, and okay, monthly rent 1650. Well, let's look at it on Zillow. Oh, they have it's currently for rent for 1450 because it's been for rent for quite a while. Uh, and it's been for rent for a while and with price changes, right? So um, and this is one of the problems that you get when you renovate a home and you rent it, and then you get like a nice rental rate and it rents pretty quick because it's a fresh new renovated home. But as soon as you release it, you're not getting you're often a lot of times this will happen, right? You'll get a lower lease rate the next time because or it'll rent slower because it's not this nice new home. And then when I was looking at values for this, estimated value 154,000, 174,000, and this is, market cap 246,000. So even if you buy this at the 5% discount that people are offering, a little bit more than 5%, like I don't know, I can't ever find deals on here that I'm excited about. Um, Real Bricks, I've talked about them a few times. At the moment, I don't see anything that I'm that excited about. I really question these 6% and 6.5% dividend yields when I dig into the numbers. They don't give me a whole lot of numbers, but when they give you the rent and the price of the property, and then I do some of my own math, it's really hard to get there. But I talked to one of the guys that works at this place, and they have some interesting news coming up. So maybe this is going to be a platform where there's some stuff happening. Where at the moment, I am just very much not excited about their current offerings. Um, and that's sort of like the world of one. I wanted to mention to everybody, if you know of other platforms, let me know. I have been turning down all these ones where you have to be an accredited investor. I put the question out, I don't know, a month or so ago, like, does anybody interested in that? And I think two people told me yes, and a lot of people were like, no, that's not what we're doing here. So you don't even go there. So, I think that I'm not going to go that direction. Um, and I think it makes sense. I mean, like a lot of, you know, a lot of the reason that this is interesting is because somebody who's really just getting started with investing in real estate can use it sort of as a stepping stone. So then, in my video yesterday, I had been looking at this like, oh, this lender kit, like this is a site that you can use to create your own fractional real estate platform. I didn't really dig into it too much. The more I think about it, I just am not, I'm not going to start a platform. I know there are other people out there thinking about that and working on it, and I think that's great. But one thing I did think about, I don't know if you guys remember this site, fractional.app. They're a platform where, you form a little community, and then in that community, usually the person who formed it brings a deal to it. Like that's the reason you do it. Like that's kind of like a lead funnel, right? And then, okay, if I formed a community and then I brought some of my deals to it and then people could invest in it, um, I started really thinking about like, do I want to do this, right? Because so one of the things, I've talked to a lot of you in the Discord. I've talked to in real life now, or not in real life, but on the phone through video calls and whatnot. And many of you, I think, are people that would like to invest in real estate, but not necessarily buy whole properties. Um, and a couple of you have actually mentioned like, "Hey, I'd invest in you in your deals if you would let me." And it's not something I've ever done. Like I have, I've invested in real estate for the last 20 years. I've never taken on an equity partner. I do have one or I've had a couple private lenders over the years who will like lend me money with a lien against the property. I pay usually a pretty high rate, but it's not equity type returns, but it's better than what you get in most other places for a regular cash flow. And so I've done that quite a bit, but I've never done a deal where I took raised equity or took on. I guess I've done when I bought a 10 unit place, I brought in two partners, but they were um, they were just it was a different situation. They were current or they were clients of mine. They were people that I was already helping find deals. I was like, hey, I'm buying this one. You want to do this with me? Um, Other than that, though, like I've never raised capital like on the equity side to do deals. Always just on my own. But like I can tell, it seems like a lot of people would benefit from doing deals with me and maybe doing bigger deals. Because a few people have already just asked me. So I was trying to figure out, like, I thought maybe I'd bring properties to Lofty. There was a time where I thought that really early on. Um, it became very clear to me that it's just not a platform I'd be willing to. I'd ever, one, I don't know that I'd ever give up full control the way that you really have to there. So this is a platform that I think is kind of interesting to be able to like do deals with some other people. Um, I'm still like kind of on the fence about it because, it's one thing for when I risk my own capital and like I think I would just be almost too nervous. But anyway, when I was looking at their setup, like their fees per deal, they do like a 3% fee to the investor side, and then they charge the basically the entity. Um, 3,500 a year. And so in order for that to make sense, I'd have to be doing, my average deals are very small deals. Um, I'd have to be doing much bigger deal, like I feel like you can't just buy, single family homes, duplexes, fourplexes and make this work. So I'd have to start doing like bigger stuff again. Where I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, one, I'm curious. Does is this idea something that anybody who, who's been in the Discord and talking about other platforms, is this even like remotely interesting to anyone other than the couple of people who've already told me, hey, let's just go buy deals together? Um, if you've mentioned that to me, but just sort of said it in passing and we haven't talked about it quite a bit, feel free to DM me or mention it again because I think that, I don't know, I think there's probably some opportunity to do that. I think what one of the things that have made me realize though, like, I mean, this is just like kind of egregious if you've already got your own group of people that you're putting together for some of these services, right? Like, I mean, I can get a multi-member LLC agreement put together, and I mean, so they're doing this, I think, more for people that are really, geared towards crowdfunding, not like if just four or five or six or seven of us got together and tried to do something. Um, so I don't know. I don't know that this is the platform to do it. Um, it got me thinking about that, and then it made me really start to think like, yeah, there's other people that like I don't really see if we're I don't see the benefit that I don't think Lofty's creating enough benefit with their aftermarket. The only thing that they really have going for them is that like aftermarket liquidity. Um, but that's just like it seems like it's kind of drying up, but it's also just not, it's so expensive because of the fees, right? Because of the transaction costs and really just like the inefficiency of it all, and so I don't know. They have a good system for your paying out rents daily, right? But other than that, um, it seems like you're giving up too much, and it's part of why the deals like just have to be you just have to buy the real big discount. So I don't know. I'm really just like hoping to start this conversation a little bit. Feel free to talk about it in the Discord. If you jump in there, just in the like real estate other section that I've got set up, we could talk about it there. Or you can DM me if you have any interest in doing this. If you're someone who wants to, has deals, but you don't, you want to bring them somewhere, but not to Lofty, like, let's figure out. I think there's just, I almost think that for some of us, it's just like needing more of a social media platform, right? But like a closed looped platform, just an easier way to discuss, um, the deals together, and then whoever wants to jump in it can do it, right? Kind of like, well, I mean, it's sort of like that I didn't even think about I can't remember what that site was called, but like the one that was the investor club, but they were doing it and then, jumping together into somebody else's syndication and investing in that way. Um, which also might even be kind of interesting if you're not paying that company some fee. So I don't know. I mean, I guess no matter what, like all of these platforms are going to have some cost for the service to do it that way. You can tell I haven't really thought this part out very much. I mean, I've thought a ton about it, but I have no great ideas, right? I mean, and this is, I guess I want to sort of back up and explain where this is coming from. I know there's a lot of us in the Discord on a lot of these platforms that have capital that we want to put out there. Um, Obviously, we don't have a lot of great options. Like I think the deals that Mogul finds, those deals exist out there in the world, right? Like it shouldn't be such an outlier. Now, maybe depending on, maybe some people say, well, yeah, they're short-term rentals and they're pad splits. It's a little bit more of a business. I don't like that business risk. Okay, well, there's still long-term rentals out there that are not that are not a 3% yield, um, and then don't even hit that yield, right? Or like there's just, and so I feel like the reason that part of the reason Lofty gets so popular, so much traction, is because people are attracted to these really high number of returns, and then you find out, oh, I'm actually not getting that kind of return most of the time unless I'm buying a discount. Very few of the full price ones, although some of them have. I mean, I have a couple really good investments on there, and those ones I do really question, like, what are those co-owners getting out of it, right? Like some of the ones, I think if they sat and broke down the math, like, okay, I got to sell out my equity at a premium, But if holding this deal for the long term, it's just not going to work. If we saw that Ario made some comments about that with his latest launch was like, oh yeah, with the co-ownership model where I pay the debt, I just can't do very many of those. And it's because it's just not a great deal for him, right? Like it creates a lot of expense for him, um, where the income, is where the Dow gets most of the income. So I think those deals, if the property is right and the co-owner is able to continue paying the notes, some of those were actually like really good deals. But those are two big caveats, right? Like the 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 deal itself has to be a profitable, it's got to be a pretty strong deal to begin with, and the co-owner. I mean, I guess that doesn't necessarily have to be true if the co-owner is just, super deep pockets, can make those payments forever. But if there's ever a struggle of the co-owner making the payments, then that puts, it's a very fragile high yield. So anyway, I don't know. I guess I'm thinking out loud about all of this, all the different options that we might have. Maybe there's a different platform we could use. Um, if you've got deals, I mean, and that's the other thing too, is like I've just always been very much on my, I haven't invested in really many of other people's deals either. I've had opportunities to be in a lot of different syndications and funds over the years of people that were my clients. I've always passed on doing that because I really like to control things. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm having a weird thought because I just see this huge hole in the market. But when I get too far down the road, I'm going to be like, there's no way I'm actually going to give up control. Um, that's probably what's gonna, like, to be perfectly honest, that's probably what's gonna happen, right? Like I'm just gonna be like, oh, that deal's my baby. Why am I even letting people buy into it? Um, but I think there's certain ones that could make sense for us to do stuff together, right? Not me taking ones that I already have and launching them to the platform, but other ones that I find, maybe bigger ones than I'd normally do, because other people would be interested in being in it, or if and because of one of the biggest things that I thought was great about the fractional real estate investing is getting some geographic diversification. I never buy deals if I'm not local, right? I've owned ones where I wasn't local because I moved away, but I've never bought stuff with the intention of doing that. And so, to get that diversification, it'd be interesting to do deals with people in other markets, or maybe even, I don't know, maybe equity swap, like, okay, like where we basically are just both investing the same amount in each other's deals in other markets. That's kind of a different thought. Um, I don't know. Anyway, that's really it. I just wanted to go over like where I kind of am at with this stuff, but then like where are we going, right? Like one, I just hope Mogul ramps up really quickly, and so that we can have just tons of deals. I mean, I say there's three on here. This one's only got $252 remaining, right? That's basically sold out. I've actually been surprised that Gilmore hasn't sold out already. I bought a little piece of that. When it gets to pretty close, I think I'll add a little bit more. Um, I didn't have the best view of the Johnson too from a pricing perspective, and so it doesn't surprise me that it hasn't sold out, but it also is one of their largest raises yet. I think they're trying to raise, yeah, over $1 million. And so I think this is really why it hasn't sold out. I don't think it necessarily is because of any of my particular thoughts on it, but because it is a really huge amount of money they're trying to raise. Are they going to be able to close on that? Yeah, they haven't even quite raised enough to close on it, because a lot of times then they'll continue to raise money after closing for the reserves and the fees, but they're not even enough for the actual closing of it. That's kind of interesting. Um, but anyway, I'm getting off track. So hopefully, and I mean they have been pretty consistently putting out one a week, but I think eventually it seems like that their demand might be ramping up quicker than their supply, and so hopefully they don't start to like slip on. Well, one, hopefully they don't start to sell too quick. Like, I mean, this one sold out. Both of these sold out extremely quickly, um, which was interesting because those are both ones I passed on. Um, but so hopefully that ramps up. Hopefully Saul's Lot ramps up. I'd love to see somebody else enter the market that's also like just bringing deals that just make a ton of sense. But if that doesn't happen, like I don't know, because and I've mentioned this before. I've got kind of a bigger, chunkier payoff coming my way from one deal, and I'm out here shopping for properties in real life again, which is not somewhere I ever wanted to be again. I was really hoping that all of my future investment dollars, by, now that I'm a year in, I was hoping I would have identified 4 or 5 places where I'd be real happy putting my money. So far, I've really got one where I can put some volume to work, and I think I will. I mean, I haven't been in mobile for a whole year yet, so that's kind of like I want to be there and really have gone a little bit longer. I'd love to see what their secondary market looks like as far as for liquidity, right? That's the other reason I haven't wanted to stick too much in there, because I want to know what it's going to look like if I had to take money out sooner. Not that I really think that will ever happen, but you never know. I mean, I think it's an important part of all these platforms, right? Is there going to be some liquidity before the actual sellout? And if so, what does that look like? Um, but once those questions are answered, I think that it will be the only one of all of them that I've looked at so far that I'll put a lot to work. If Saul's Lot keeps going the same way, that could happen here too, but they just have a long way to go, right? They have to start to have some volume. I mean, as it is, uh, like if I had bought out every single one that they've put up so far, um, that's not as much as like, one bigger deal in real life, right? So like they're gonna have to have a ton of volume before there'll be like a good tool as far as putting capital to work. Um, Yeah, but that's it. I mean, that's kind of where we're stuck. I don't want to do real life work and go get properties and do all that stuff again. So, that's the real hesitation with me, like doing any of the sort of selling out some deals too, is like the stuff that I do in real life is one, it's a little bit weirder. It's not exactly, it doesn't look like these. And like, do I want to start going and doing deals like this again? Maybe buying stuff. I have looked at buying a couple of properties here and converting them to pad splits. Um, One of the thoughts that I had, which I'm just now I'm just really riffing on, like, weird kind of. So, I've appreciate, if you haven't, if you're still here, hit the like button, because I mean, come on, it's been a while. Um, but one of the thoughts that I've really had is that there's a business to be had, because Mogul only buys existing pad splits in Airbnbs, right? They have to have operating history. I think there's a business model where you could buy properties, convert them to pad splits, run them for a year, and sell them to Mogul. Have them be your exit strategy. And because they are, they're not, most of the ones that I'm buying, I don't think they're really overpaying. Some of them really, to me, look like they're overpaying. Um, the ones that I skip it's almost always because I think they're paying too high a premium, even though they're getting a great yield. Again, that's just my opinion. Do your own due diligence. But I think that there's a business model where you buy properties, convert them, as long as have a very profitable pad split there, being able to sell out for a lot more than what you have into them for the properties. Um, I don't know that's the case. I haven't done it yet, but that's one of the things that I'm interested in experimenting with. And then it keeps you from having like, I always like to just turn over money as quickly as possible, right? Like, as much as real estate, like, is a long-term hold, is an asset in general. When you're doing your own deals, usually like if it's a 3 to 5 year hold, that's a lot of times what's going to maximize your returns. And uh, if you can even shrink that lower and make it work, when you just typically get the highest returns by having those shorter hold periods if you're adding value, right? Because most of the value that you created gets captured from the sale, not from the cash flow. And then you can put that, then you have more to put to work. So I don't know. Whenever there's a strategy like that, I think it's kind of interesting. But because you might be like, well, why don't you start flipping homes, Joe? Well, because that's a dumb business strategy. It's not dumb, but it is very much it's different because if you don't sell that home, you just lose, right? Where like these other deals, what I'm talking about is, okay, you're making money, but you make most of your money when you sell, right? So you're turning it over, you're getting this big pop, but you can afford to hold it forever if you have to. And so, when I say flipping is dumb, it's not dumb. It's just a higher risk model, right? Because if you can't sell it for what you need to, then that's it. That's the whole business, right? Where it's very similar to, yeah, I don't know if you watched the video where I talked about M1's book. Is it M1's book? Yeah, that he wrote that swing or be swung, the swing trading real estate book. That's very much the strategy that I think makes sense, right? And it doesn't have to be a year. Especially when I worked in commercial stuff, a lot of the private equity groups would, their hold period is 3 to 5 years, sometimes even 5 to 7, depending on the asset. But having some shorter window like that versus, oh, I just hold forever is really how you typically maximize returns. But so having a model where you could consistently hold for, and it would have to be more than a year too, right? It'd have to be like 18 months because you have to buy it, you have to do the construction, you'd have to ramp it up to stabilization and then operate it for a year. Maybe they'd, it'd be interesting to see how they'd underwrite it, if you ramped it up for 3 months and then you had 9 months that it was awesome, would they give you credit for that? I don't know. Um, that's a model. I think I've mentioned it one other time, but I think it could be interesting. I've also talked about like some of the deals. I think it would be interesting to get together and just buy some of the lofty properties, right? Like, especially if they let us burn some of our tokens as the down payment or a portion of the down payment. I mean, I think there's all these kinds of ways to make money interacting with some of these fractional real estate platforms. Um, Yeah, now I've just like gone way off on too many tangents. Anyway, I've been doing this over a year now. I can't believe that. I was so messed up. I really thought it was next month. That's sort of all of my thoughts on the current platforms I'm in. I really would like to hear if anybody has any thoughts about these ideas. Um, or if you've realized like this is just like tired Joe rambling for 42 minutes and 30 seconds, and he just should have shut up 20 minutes ago. And you know what? If you're still watching at this point in time, maybe, put a comment in there, just be like, shut up and go to bed, Joe. Then I'll know you watched till the end, and people will think you're a jerk for making such a mean comment. So anyway, that's it for me for today. Until next time, I'm going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.